Like, hey, this
He's
is
like, this is
exactly
why.
why you can't live here.
He said it was a mean look, real angry, unlike any I've ever seen before. And I even literally wrote in my notes, "You did the right thing, Ronnie."
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was like, I need you to know you did the right thing.
I would be like, you're proving me right,
yeah,
right
I can't
now.
have you near my infant child and my wife doing this. Like,
No.
you were being the dad. You were taking care of your family. Good for you.
Yeah, and Kim did
And
the
good
same
for
thing.
Kim being the mom and taking care of her shit.
Hell yeah.
Now, by January 1978, Velma had quit her job and was hospitalized again for a brief period of time. Without money to pay for anything, she again stole checks from Stuart, which triggered that panic that he was going to report her, and that familiar panic set in. She was only going to make him sick, she told herself. Just long enough for her to replace the money so he wouldn't find out about the checks. Of course, Velma did not just make Stuart sick. She poisoned him with arsenic just as she had the others. Stuart spent the evening of February 3rd in absolute agony. And eventually Velma took him to the hospital, but by then it was too late. Within a few hours, he was pronounced dead.
So she killed 3 people within the same family.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Like a couple months apart.
Yeah.
Wow.
And all for the same reasons.
There's no
Same
major-
trivial. You annoyed me and I stole your money and I was scared you were going to report me.
She's fucked. What is she up to? Like, how many people has she killed at this point? She killed her husband, her second husband, then her mother, then
Dolly.
Dolly, and Dolly's husband.
Not Montgomery. She didn't kill Montgomery.
Oh, right. So she killed
She killed
Dolly.
She killed John Henry.
Oh my god.
And she's killed Stuart.
Holy shit.
Now, until Stuart's death, Velma's victims, like we said, had all been kind of sick or elderly. Precisely the type of people you'd kind of expect to die from an illness or an accident or some kind of, Stuart was only 56 years old at the time of his death.
I was just
and he
gonna
was in
ask.
relatively good health.
That's fucking wild.
Now, under the circumstances, I guess relatively good health, all things considered about his lifestyle.
Okay.
He wasn't on the pay. Like, nobody expected him to just drop dead.
Yeah.
Now, under the circumstances, the family was stunned and confused by his death, and so they were like, yeah, we want an autopsy.
Right.
And they were eager for a pathologist to perform one. In fact, they even included Velma in their decision to have the autopsy performed, which she agreed was a good idea.
What?
She said, I didn't expect them to find anything. Besides, my mind was already convincing me that I had not killed Stuart.
Girl,
And
you
here's the
dumped a
thing.
plate full of fucking arsenic.
But she's probably thinking, especially at this time period, how are they going to find it? He was vomiting and diarrhea and
So she
all
thinks it
that.
came
It's
out of his
probably out of his
system?
system. Like, they're not going to find that shit. And it's not like we're as advanced as we are now. So it's like, even now it can be tough to find. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
So she's probably thinking, like, what the fuck are they going to find? They're not going to find arsenic.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if they wouldn't have. Well, I don't know what happens. I'm assuming they do. And I don't know if they wouldn't have if she hadn't put so much.
I know.
I'm interested to find
She
that out.
really goes. Now, despite pressure from Stuart's family, the pathologist could only work as fast as his partners in the lab could turn around test results. So the results of the autopsy were delayed by several weeks because they were trying to go through all the strange abnormalities they were discovering during the initial exam. In fact, it wasn't until the pathologist was describing the results to the state's chief medical examiner, Paige Hudson, that things started moving again. While the technicians and pathologists had recognized suspicious elements of the autopsy, it was Hudson who immediately recognized Stuart Taylor's death as acute arsenic poisoning.
Damn.
Hudson's
Acute question mark?
presumption, would take a little more time and a few more tests to confirm. Sorry, I was moving. That's why I was like, But in the meantime, he had called the police and the district attorney to let them know that they very likely had a murder on their hands.
Ooh.
Now, following Stuart's murder, Velma fell right back into that cycle of working the overnight shift, then returning home to get lost in just disassociation. And she did get the occasional visitor, but she was very surprised when the doorbell rang on March 10th, and she opened it to find a man she'd never seen before standing on her doorstep. The man introduced himself as Benson Phillips, a detective with the Lumberton Police Department. And he asked Velma to come down to the station with him to talk about a few suspicious deaths, including that of her latest fiancé, Stuart Taylor.
Oh, shit.
ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches.
Detective Phillips took the news to Stewart's family and informed them that they suspected Velma of having killed their father.
Her children thought that she killed their dad.
No, so I should have said that a better way. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Stewart had children.
Oh, okay, I see.
With his
Previous
ex-wife.
wife, yeah.
I forgot. I should have stated that a little better because that would have been confusing.
No, that makes sense.
And this prompted Stewart's daughter Alice to provide the investigators with all the information on the forged checks and Velma's other suspicious behavior in the weeks leading up to Stewart's murder.
That's the thing. It's like you created it, like you were saying earlier, a paper trail.
And on the evening of March 13th, 1978, Detective Benson returned to Velma's house, this time for a warrant for her arrest for the murder of Stewart. And although investigators were tight-lipped about the other deaths Velma was suspected of having caused, Lumberton, North Carolina is a small town, and it wasn't hard for the press and locals to put the pieces together. Now confronted with the evidence against her and the threat of revealing tests being conducted on the exhumed bodies now of her mother and Dolly and Jackson County grand jury, who indicted Velma Barfield on one count of first-degree murder. But Velma was absent from the courtroom at the time because she was admitted to Dorothea Dix Hospital for a few days for a psychological examination. A month later, Dr. Bob Rollins, a psychiatrist from the hospital, completed and submitted the results of his examination of Velma, in which she determined that she was competent to stand trial. A month later, on May 5th, Velma was arraigned for the murder in a Robeson County courtroom where she pled not guilty by reason of insanity. As the pieces of the puzzle began coming together in the press, the residents of Lumberton grew increasingly shocked by the number of Velma's victims.
Yeah.
And the manner in which they were killed. Because like we said, sometimes you hear poisoning and you think, I think your brain sometimes just goes to like, oh no, I don't feel well, and then somebody passes out and dies. And it's like, oh no, this is fucking gruesome. It is an awful, awful, awful way to die. She was a real monster. It's right up there with like stabbing and like doing awful like hand-to-hand shit. I feel like it's
And
bad.
she just sat there and watched
She
it
just
happen.
watched it happen. That's even worse.
Yeah.
One resident told the Charlotte News, "You just don't expect to have a mass murderer in your town," which, I mean, valid.
Yeah, accurate. I don't.
A friend of Stewart's named Yates Allen agreed, told for reporters he was very angry at Velma. He said, "For causing a friend of mine to go through what he went through. Certainly he suffered the tortures of the damned." Which I was like, oh, shit. But most people simply couldn't wrap their heads around the idea of what they knew as like a pretty kind, helpful woman.
Yeah.
Because again, like she got recommended to work with these elderly people.
Right.
She was, by all accounts, a loving mom, even though like they had a tough childhood, obviously.
Right.
I don't think she outwardly was showing a lot of things that would lead anyone to believe she could do this. They just couldn't believe she had done it. And Allen again said Stewart, in all his life, he wouldn't go to church. This one got him going 2 or 3 times a week.
Wow. She was going to church?
That's the thing. I was like, I don't know if that's the flex that you think it is, because it's like this serial killer got him going 2 or 3 times a week. Like, I don't know what that says about anything. But I feel like maybe we could just leave that to the birds, you know?
I think he was like, damn.
Because I'm like, I don't know what that. This bitch was going to church 2 or 3 times a week. I don't know. I don't have words for it. But I'm like, damn.
Damn indeed.
They were sitting in pews with a serial killer.
That's wild.
And she's sitting there like talking up a big game. I mean, according to her, and you'll hear she gets saved later in prison. And it's like, I don't believe that. Like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I think that's such bullshit.
You sat and watched people in the most agonizing pain.
Yeah, that's fucked.
Vomiting up everything in their body to the point where they were probably vomiting up like actual body fluids that they need to survive. Crying, sobbing, begging for help, shitting themselves, grasping from her boyfriend in order to get her pills, and then killed him in order to prevent him from discovering the theft. It was pretty black and white.
Yeah.
As evidence of her misdeeds, Britt produced the 4 checks Velma had stolen from Stewart, and the defense immediately objected, pointing out that in order for the checks to be relevant, Britt needed to prove that Stewart didn't authorize her to sign on his behalf, which
Okay.
evidence from an unrelated crime, because they're talking about Stewart's murder,
Yeah.
to prove intent to the murder of Stewart Taylor. And defense attorney Bob Jacobson said, Mr. Britt is trying to try 5 or 6 cases here rather than 1. The judge agreed, but allowed Britt to continue presenting evidence from the other cases as a means of establishing Velma's pattern of intent.
Yeah.
Which I think is right.
I think that's fair.
Now, arguing in Velma's defense, Bob Jacobson presented an equally simple case to the jury. He said she was raised by an extremely violent man who terrorized the entire household. And so she went on to develop mental illness and a severe drug addiction in adulthood that caused her to lose control and made her psychotic and violent.
So he wasn't arguing that she hadn't murdered
No.
Stewart. He was saying she did it.
That
in
she's
insanity.
basically the insanity thing. Now, Jacobson noted that his client had, like we said, killed Stewart Taylor, but she had done so in a psychotic, manic state and therefore could not be held accountable for her actions. I don't agree. Now, moreover, Velma maintained that she did so in a psychotic, manic state and therefore could not be held accountable for her actions. I don't agree. Now, moreover, Velma maintained that she had always intended only to make her victim sick.
Hi, we look forward to welcoming you to Best Western Plus Bryce Canyon Grand Hotel today. Check-in is at 4 p.m., and you will need to pick up your key and swipe your card at the front desk. Please reply with any questions. Reply stop to end. Do you want to reply?
No.
Okay.
Check-in is at 4 p.m. What the fuck, dude? Must be fucking high. I'll be there too.